Hello everyone, welcome back my channel.
Michael Jackson's Thriller gave Vincent Price immortality after he tried acting on a dare. Vincent Price's acting career all started with a dare and culminated in one of the most iconic laughs in horror history. The horror legend was in England studying for his master's in art history at the University of London when a friend dared the 23-year-old to audition for Chicago, a play band in the US that the musical was later based upon. According to his daughter, he always wanted to be an actor. Victoria Price told Fox News Digital of her father, a pop culture fixture during the Halloween season. But he never got cast. So, then he went to London to study art history at the University of London, and he kept going to see plays. And somebody dared him to try out for a play, and that's how he became an actor. Victoria said her father always wanted to be a character actor. He was 6'4", he was incredibly handsome, and they cast him in these roles that he didn't really like. So, he wanted to figure out how to be a character actor, she said. The actors he admired were actors like Spencer Tracy and Edward G. Robinson and Jimmy Cagney, but he was 6'4" and beautifully spoken and just ridiculously handsome as a young man. So, he found that being sort of a Gothic villain was his entree into that in a play called Angel Street on Broadway and in movies like Song of Bernadette and Laura, sort of, but certainly all the film noirs, but mainly Dragonwyck in the 40s. And then that led into him being seen as the heavy, but a certain kind of heavy, a beautifully spoken, eloquent kind of heavy. He was never going to be a gangster. And that led to House of Wax. Victoria says her dad liked character acting because the nice guys have no fun and it just didn't appeal to him. You know, there's so much more meat in a villain. You know, the villain's conflicts, his interactions with others. He did a lecture for years called The Villains Still Pursue Me, and he wrote a lot of and spoke a lot of the appeal of the bad guy and how much we're drawn to the bad guy. Her father's appeal to audiences when he played a villain was a hallmark of Dad's characters, she said. You know, people loved my dad, and they rooted for him even as he was chopping off people's heads or dumping them in vats of wax or, you know, he had this quality where you loved Vincent Price, and you loved that he was scaring you. And so, I think that was something that he was not unique in, of course, but really one of the best. He also loved doing comedy, she says. That's why he did The Carol Burnett Show, Here's Lucy. He did some wonderful movies that were comedies. And, obviously, things like Get Smart and Batman. He was a funny, funny man. He was drawn to funny people. His friends were funny people, his wives were funny people. He was clever, he was witty. She added that there's a very fine line between horror and humor, so that was something he played with a lot. You know, sometimes you don't know whether to laugh or run screaming out of the room. Vincent's narration in Michael Jackson's Thriller when the actor was in his 70s introduced him to a new generation of fans in the early 1980s. So, in that sense, it was fantastic. The only hard part was that he had a hard time getting parts that weren't horror, Victoria shared. And we forget because horror is this hip, fabulous, huge money-making genre, that's not what horror was, she noted. Horror was B-movies for kiddie, schlocky stuff. My dad was mocked by his peers, he was questioned. But she says that the album, an all-time bestseller, guarantees his immortality. As long as there's Halloween, there'll be Thriller, and some kid is going to go, that's so cool. Who did that laugh? And find out about him. Victoria revealed the House on Haunted Hill star was also a hilarious, practical joker at home, telling a story about how he once pranked her when she lost her first tooth. When I was about to lose my first tooth, we were on our way to New York, and I was really worried that I would lose my tooth, and how would the tooth fairy know where I was, because I wanted that nickel. That very first nickel that I was going to get if I put my tooth under the pillow. So, I was obviously expressing this concern, and my dad was like, absolutely, the tooth fairy will know where you are. So, my tooth fell out. I'm in a hotel room in New York. I put it under the pillow, and I wake up the next morning, and I am so excited. I lift up my pillow to get my nickel, and there's this disgusting, corroded denture. And he'd been saving that the whole time. And he could have totally let that go, you know. He had to carry that denture on the plane to New York. She laughed, adding she wouldn't have remembered losing her first tooth if she'd just gotten a nickel. While her father was busy with his career, she says they were very close. When I